Welcome to the Third Row Tesla podcast. My name is Safian Farval, and today we have a very special announcement to make. I'm going to hand over to Omar Kazi to make that announcement.
All right, guys, we've got a very special guest for you today, somebody who needs no introduction. Please give it up for Elon Mitchell.
Elon, wait, did you say Elon's going to be on the show today? No one told me.
No, I said Shawn Mitchell, Shawn Mitchell.
Did you say Michelle, like the first lady?
Michelle? Wait, this is ridiculous.
Well, actually, he told me on Twitter last week.
Who, Obama?
Yeah, he ordered a Cybertruck, actually. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
Just kidding, guys. Of course, Elon. He was actually talking about his Wikipedia page, and he said, quote, "My wiki is a war zone with a zillion edits. At least it's obviously not curated. Someday I should probably write what my fictionalized version of reality is." And I said, well, why don't you come on the Third Row Tesla podcast and tell us all about it? And guess what he said?
Okay, sure.
Exactly.
No.
No, he said that to somebody else.
No, of course. He said, okay, sure. He's going to be on the podcast.
Wow, good job, Viv. Way to secure that guest. But, of course, we've got a much more interesting guest here today. Safi, do you want to introduce Shawn?
Sure. Yeah, so before I introduce Shawn, I just want to say a big shout out to all our Third Row crew. So our regular panel of members that makes it happen on this podcast. So we have Omar Kazi, who already did the introduction for Shawn.
Boom.
And then we've got Viv Hensush.
Hey.
Then we got Galileo Russell from Hyperchange TV.
What up, third row?
And then we've also got Tesla Raj.
Hey, guys.
And then we've got Kristen, K10.
Hi.
And we got Vincent from Testmanian.com.
Hi.
Well, thanks, guys, for joining us. And, of course, we've got our guest, Shawn Mitchell, today. So let me give you a little bit of background about Shawn. So Shawn, he is the president of the Denver Tesla Owners Club. And the last time we checked, and I think he needs to update his website, because back then it was like 300 plus members. Now it's like over 1,000, which is amazing. So congrats to Shawn doing an amazing job for Tesla and everybody there. And he also has an S85, a Model S85, and he likes to document his ownership on YouTube. So Shawn, today we're actually going to be talking about the competition. And what better way to do this on our podcast where we're all very passionate about EVs. So you want to give us a little bit of a background?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for reaching out and inviting me on the show. I'm excited. I collectively lovingly call you guys the Musk Mafia, and you guys are great proponents of Tesla and their mission and electric vehicles in general. So thanks for having me on. I actually bought a 60 kilowatt hour Model S, and then over the course of the miles that I've driven, killed the first battery. They replaced it with a 75 kilowatt hour pack. And so that one's been going strong since. But I've got a unique perspective, and then I spend way too much time in my car. And I know it pretty well. And over the course of documenting the ownership journey of my Model S, I realized, in fact, I distinctly remember the conversation with Gally at it was either before or just after the Rivian unveil a year ago. I remember us talking about how the electric vehicle market was growing, expanding, more automakers were getting into it. And it was at that moment that I decided that I was going to expand the channel from just talking about ownership of a Model S and Tesla to electric vehicles in general. And it's been about a year since I started doing that. So it's been a really fun journey.
Awesome. And then why did you expand? I mean, like we're kind of like to talk about Tesla a lot, but we know that really the whole planet has to get off fossil fuels. So, I mean, why do you think the competition is so important at this stage to, the EV transition?
Well, Tesla can't do it solely on their own. I mean, they're going to need the help of other automakers if they want to accomplish their mission. And it's fundamental, it's important. I think we'll probably talk about some tactics or some paths that they could do that to help accelerate their mission. But they need other automakers to succeed, and they're in a very interesting situation as a market leader. and they've got a really great opportunity to help other automakers in some ways. And as Gally and I have talked about ad nauseum on other recordings of ours on YouTube, I think that there could be a chance that Tesla licenses out some of their technology to help them.
Awesome. So I know you've actually been in a prime position to see some of the competition firsthand. I mean, what would you really love to see in an EV vehicle? I mean, in terms of one that doesn't exist yet, or maybe missing, or really needed. I'm just kind of curious of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll first just say, just to provide some context for those that have never listened to me or heard my story, I've had a really interesting opportunity over the last, I'd say 12 months in particular, to have one-on-one conversations with the CEO of Rivian. I've had one-on-one conversations with the CEO of Bollinger Motors, as well as the CEO of Porsche North America, and it's been really interesting to get their perspectives on things. I think there's when Tesla first started, you have to remember, like, what everyone sees right now is a 370 plus mile Model S and a 325 plus mile Model X and 300 plus mile Model 3, but that's not where Tesla started in the very beginning. You look at the Roadster and it was somewhere around 240 miles, and with that context, you have to sort of use that as your basis for some of these other automakers that are putting out maybe less than expected or less than desired range. So they don't get a free pass, but it's important to keep in mind that these companies are where Tesla was in 2006, 7, and 8. They've got a lot of work to do, and at least right now have a lot of money to invest into the R&D piece of it. I think it's critical for them to double, triple, quadruple down on their battery electric technologies so that they're not too far behind Tesla. And every day, every month that they don't have a competitive vehicle to Tesla is just that much greater of a chance that they might not exist in 5 to 10 years.
Right. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, Tesla's, like you mentioned, they've come from, this 200 plus mile vehicle. It was still so far ahead of the competition back then. I mean, why do you think that they're the number one sellers of EVs worldwide? I mean, it just boggles my mind that so many competitors, they couldn't even make a vehicle. I mean, they still can't even make a vehicle good enough as a 2012 Model S, or with the amount of range.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a very valid question to ask. I think it boils down to that's Tesla's only option, right? They're not making gasoline and electric cars, so they have to survive because they put all of their chips, all of their eggs in one basket with electric vehicles, and they have to succeed with the electric powertrain. And I think that potentially some automakers are maybe not as serious as Tesla. And Elon Musk actually shared when he accepted the Golden Steering Wheel Award in Germany recently that the reason why other automakers are a little bit farther behind is because you have to deal with internal politics of the company. You also have this new technology that if you decide to invest capital into as a traditional automaker, you can't afford to be wrong in that case because the stakes are higher for these larger companies. So for a young company like Tesla, who really pioneered the modern electric vehicle, yes, they did have everything to lose, but they were also a smaller company, less known, less capital to be able to make bigger waves.
Yeah, it's really kind of a case of the innovator's dilemma, where you have a situation at Tesla where if they don't make a successful electric vehicle, everybody goes home. They're all fired. There's no company, right? But you've got kind of the converse situation at a legacy auto company. They've got this mature internal combustion engine technology that's profitable, and you've got this EV technology where the batteries are so expensive that it's really difficult to offer a profitable vehicle. So are you going to tell people to buy your unprofitable new EV instead of your profitable new ICE sedan? It's the other scenario. Everyone, is going to get hurt business-wise if you push too hard on the EVs.
So I think you really still do have a situation where they don't want EVs to take off just yet. It wouldn't be good for them.
I guess on the converse, I'll add that these traditional automakers are benefiting because of Tesla's initial investment into the automotive industry. So, there's a part of me that's like, okay, give them a slight pass for their initial EVs. But then there's another part of me that thinks these companies have watched Tesla take the biggest risk in the automotive industry in terms of electrification. Now these big automotive companies should be able to stand on the shoulders of Tesla and everything, all of the risk that Tesla has put into it. So, I look at both angles, and these are the companies that have the most money to spend on new programs. They should be putting out a better product than what they are. I'm calling out Porsche because the EPA range just came out at 201 miles, and for a $150,000 car, it's a little bit of a soapbox for me. They should have come out with a better product.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I mean, Tesla's battery tech has been superior for such a long time. I mean, the efficiency of the vehicle all put together is all engineered as a whole to make this the longest range vehicle, the best tech. And then now they're coming out with better tech. I mean, you recently interviewed Sandy Munro, and he's torn down all the vehicles. And I mean, what do you think, like with your discussions with him, what makes Tesla so special?
Well, I think that there's a handful of things, and Gally, feel free to chime in as well, because we both went to his one-day conference back in, I think it was May, and so he's got, I think, just as much insight as I do. There's a few things that they're doing well. They've built their own battery pack, and so I think that's a large component of that. They've also got a remarkable electric motor, and so I've got the book that he provided at the one-day conference, and one of the things that he breaks down that I think is quite remarkable, and maybe I can find it if I as I'm talking here. But one of the things that I think is exceptional is their electric motor and the magnets that they use in the electric motor. What he determined was, so here is, let's see. So here is a picture of it. What he determined that the magnets, the core elements of the magnets were far stronger than any of the competition that he looked at. The Bolt, the I-Pace, the BMW i3, the amount of power output that those magnets in the electric motor were producing were far greater, far superior. The density of the magnets were far greater. And so I think that it's battery pack. It's not just cells and energy density, but it's also the management of the battery pack that Tesla is quite far ahead. It's the electric motor, it's the efficiency, and it's the power output. It also weighs less than their competition. And then I think it's the software component as well. And this is something that traditional automakers still don't quite get yet, the software piece. And it goes back to Tesla being who they have been fundamentally for more than a decade now. They've just got more time in the seat, and that's why they're better at these three things.
It seems like we went from phase one, which was Tesla's a joke, to wow, Tesla's obviously the future, and now every auto company is scrambling to copy them as fast as possible. But that 10-year advantage led to numerous things where Tesla's ahead, but especially batteries, where they commercialized putting the lithium-ion cell, 4,000 of them into one pack, assembling it, managing all those electronics is just an expertise that no one else has, while every other automaker is sort of outsourcing everything except building engines, which is now the one thing you don't need. It seems like they only focused on making their technology sort of cheaper and cheaper and getting better at building it, not really advancing it. And now Tesla's had a decade of running with it, and they're all realizing that that's clearly the future. And so they're just so behind in terms of copying it. And like you said, software, Sandy Munro tears down all the hardware. They can't even analyze the software. And even, we're just talking about the hardware, Tesla's years ahead. And then when you layer on the software, it just seems like it's such a big leap for someone else to catch up.
Yeah, let me pose this question to the group. And the question is, was there any other EV that you considered or that you would consider if Tesla wasn't an option? Just, speaking about the competition in general, is there any other electric vehicle that you see yourself saying, yeah, you know what, I could buy that, I could see myself enjoying that vehicle? Let's start with Kristen or Viv.
From this date on, or from when I purchased my vehicle?
Maybe when you were looking at your Model 3 or even now.
I don't think there's a whole lot out there. I mean, but a lot of people who are very environmentally friendly were driving the Prius.
I mean, did you look at anything else, or you just looked at the Model 3?
Oh, no, hands down, it was Tesla. Tesla just has, I mean, everything is put together. The way their mission statement, I mean, what they're doing is it's just so efficient. It meets everything you need when you're trying to look for a vehicle price-wise as well, so.
So this is an interesting thing. You just mentioned, the mission statement, right? So the mission, this idea that there's going to be this electrical vehicle revolution and all cars are going to become electric, right? So that's the idea behind Tesla, is we get everybody to abandon gas cars and go electric. So, that was kind of the topic for today, is where is the electric vehicle revolution? When is this going to happen, that all cars become electric from all manufacturers? And why hasn't that happened yet?
Well, I think we're just starting to see it start. I mean, I think Tesla's encouraged people where people thought it wasn't possible.
I think we're definitely starting to see it heat up. Like recently, I've started to see a lot more different EV brands just around town, which wasn't the case before. And I think we really are, starting to see the EV market heat up. It's just a small part, but you can tell the wheels are starting to turn.
Definitely.
And then Viv, what do you think?
I think it's like Omar said, you see like so many more companies, and I think companies like Rivian or Bollinger Motors, they have, in my opinion, just like a much bigger chance of success, just because like they're trying something new.
But would you buy one of those?
I mean, probably the Rivian. If I couldn't buy a Tesla at all, probably the Rivian, just because it seems like the closest to Tesla in terms of just like the entire approach to electric vehicles. And I mean, they're not trying to just, take an ICE car and put an electric motor in it and that's it. They're actually trying to make something new and try to innovate. And I think that's really important. And I think you don't see that from any of the legacy automakers. That was actually when I watched Galley's video, I think it was the Mach-E, and the screen was so laggy. Like, it was so awful.
Yeah.
And I thought, how the fuck do you, release a vehicle in 2019 that has a laggy screen? I mean, the iPhone has been around since 2007, so I'm not sure. It's not something that has to be developed or researched a lot. You just take it and just put a giant iPad into the car, and it should be very easy. But apparently, it's not. It's like a bad subway ticket machine, actually. So I don't know why they think this is going to sell well, but trust me, it's not.
So what you're saying is you would rather take the subway than drive a Mach-E?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I'm very sorry, but it's true. It's why would I spend money on something that I absolutely hate, on a product that does not excite me? So if I needed a car right now, fortunately the public transport is quite okay, so I don't just need a car right now. But if I did need one, I'd probably buy, I don't know, I'd rather drive a cheap Prius than spend that much money on a Mach-E, which is just shitty. I don't know, but that's just me.
They do have a year to refine the software. I did sit in it as well. I played with it at the LA Auto Show, just like Galley did. And my impression was the overall take or approach on the UI and UX, the layout of it was pretty good. But you're right, they do need to improve the speed of it. And I'm hopeful that within the next 12 months that they can improve that. I haven't been in a Ford gasoline car in a while, but I don't think that their screen is that as laggy as the Mach-E's. My understanding of the Mach-E is that they literally finished that prototype just shortly before they revealed it, when normally they have some months ahead where that vehicle is done. So I think that they were probably working late hours to get this ready for their launch event and the LA Auto Show. So hopefully they can improve it in time. The other one that I'll mention that I'm extremely optimistic about is the Polestar 2. They're using Google. The whole thing is Google, and it looks extremely promising. I haven't seen it in person, but I'm excited about that one.
Cool. And then just a quick question, sorry, for Shawn, because you said you sat in the vehicle. So does that mean you actually ordered one? Because we tried to sit in the vehicle, in the Mach-E, and they wouldn't let us unless we actually put down a reservation. So just like to know if you're actually thinking about getting one yourself.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a really great car. Sorry to not like struggle a little bit with answering the question. I should have like acted like it was a hard decision for me. But I think it's a really great car. I think it's going to fit. I think it's going to appeal to people who are very used to Fords, who that's been their brand for decades. Like their family has bought Ford for generations. There are some other concerns. I think in terms of range, it's going to be great. There are some other concerns, probably more importantly, like internally, whether they can make this a profitable car or not, because it's a whole nother topic. I can get into it if you want, but I'm concerned about the profitability aspect of this, even despite them making it in Mexico. But I had a special media access pass at the LA Auto Show, so I didn't have any issues with like I had to wait in line, but I got to do exterior shots, interior shots of the vehicle, sit in the front and back, and I like the overall product of it, and it's not necessarily for me, but I think that it will be for a lot of people.
Yeah, so I think first of all it's really exciting just to see cars like the Mustang Mach-E, and really makes you feel like it's really happening. Automakers are really putting out electric cars. But it is interesting what Viv said about kind of how Rivian and even the Polestar to some extent, that's made by Volvo, but they got acquired by Geely, a Chinese company. So they're really kind of approaching. I kind of almost consider it like a startup car. For that reason. So kind of like the startup cars, I think they are probably much more promising than some of the legacy auto cars. And, Ford is good at a lot of things. Software has never been one of them. Ford is traditionally a manufacturing company. They make good low-cost vehicles, that Americans love to buy. And the software companies, the companies that are coming at this from a software approach, like, Rivian has Amazon's backing and things like that, they probably have a much better chance of competing with Tesla. I mean, you look at the latest autopilot visualization, right? I mean, Tesla's so far ahead on software, and they just keep getting further ahead.
I wanted to check in with Shawn, just because, Shawn, you've got so much experience with so many other vehicles outside of Tesla, and I would say my brain is purely focused on Tesla, with obviously knowing the competition. But we obviously, I think we can all agree, Tesla is number one and probably what we feel is the best. But if you had to, with all of your experience, who would you put in as closest to being number two, right? It may be far behind Tesla, but who would be the next, kind of runner-up as far as just kind of everything that they have on the table today?
Good question. I think, there are. I've had a chance now to either test drive or review almost every electric vehicle on the market in North America, either on the market or about to be on the market, and everyone's going to value different things. Some people are going to highly value autopilot, or its self-driving promises, so Tesla's going to be a front runner there. But other people might value the luxury of an Audi e-tron, and it's a very, very nice driving experience. Range aside, it's a very nice driving experience. But I would say if I could not choose a Tesla, I'm most hopeful about Rivian for a number of reasons. Both Gally and I, we got a tour of their headquarters in Detroit when we were there in May, and we got sort of this unique glimpse, and we had this conversation with their head designer. He let us sit in the car. He let us play with the touch screen. Rivian, and I mentioned before that I've had a chance to sit down one-on-one with RJ Scaringe, really super nice guy, very down to earth, extremely intelligent. He's sort of the antithesis of Elon Musk. He's not bold, he's not brash, but he's incredibly confident. Rivian makes me hopeful with a total package in terms of design. It appears like they understand the importance of build quality. Software looks to be pretty phenomenal. The cash backing that Rivian has had, even just in 2019, is just mind-boggling. And I think that they understand the importance of how much it costs to get a product, just one vehicle, into production. And so based on what I've seen about the car and my conversations with people internally at the company, I'm extremely optimistic about Rivian. Of course, they have to execute, but based on what I know, Rivian I think is a next runner-up.
That's really funny that everyone thinks, oh, Volkswagen, right? They're the biggest seller of autos in the world, and they're jumping into EVs. But, nobody's really talking about Volkswagen. It seems like their technology is kind of behind. The companies people are kind of really interested in haven't shipped their vehicles yet.
Yeah, and I think we touched on it earlier, too, is that we feel that the legacy automakers are actually at a disadvantage, whereas the newcomers are at more of an advantage because they're doing something brand new and there's not, there's not dirt in the water or whatever, like there's not another product that they're more focused on. They're focused on purely on that electric state of mind.
Yeah.
These traditional automakers are highly conservative, and there's more internal politics than I think people realize with these companies. And many of them are, half a century old or more. So you have a lot of these internal politics, you have internal culture that you have to overcome, and this is a brand new technology that they're having to upstart. VW sounds like they're, it doesn't sound like it's just lip service. In fact, I read a headline today that they've upped their EV production to 1.5 million EVs by 2025. So they're saying the right things. Can they get there? We'll see, because battery technology and electric motor technology are going to be the things that they need to overcome. Who knows? They might partner together with Tesla. There's some interesting things that I think are going on behind the scenes there. But VW, you seem to hear a lot more about them than others, and that indicates to me that they're at least talking about it internally, about ramping this up and offering a lot of vehicles.
Well, Volkswagen loves making big promises, and they love Photoshop.
Yes.
Shawn, you brought up a good point just now on the charging infrastructure, right? And so I just kind of wanted to touch on that as well. Is that you've got the legacy automakers, and then you've got the newcomers, but nobody. I mean, if all of us here had to say who's the leader in charging infrastructure, we all know it's Tesla, right? No one else has that.
In the United States.
Yes.
In Europe, it's a little bit different situation because of the open charging infrastructure,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I'm kind of curious to hear from Vincent, too, about the charging over there in China.
Well, I had a question for Vincent because, you've got legacy auto, the traditional automakers, but China traditionally hasn't been a big global auto exporter. I think Chinese cars have kind of had a reputation of being like, low cost, you don't want that car. But China is really trying to become a huge global auto exporter, maybe even trying to surpass Germany. And I think this is why you've seen Gigafactory 3, the government has just been like bending over backwards, giving Tesla the first wholly owned factory. I think they really want to get ahead in electric vehicles and establish China as a dominant player in auto export. So where are the other Chinese EV startups? Do we think, NIO, XPeng, any of these people could make a splash in the Chinese market or even the worldwide market?
From the Chinese government perspective, this is what I heard from a lot of my friends. Like because since like Germany, they've been doing the ICE combustion engine for like really, really long time. So most of the Chinese automaker, they know there's no way to surpass the engine technology comparing to the Germany and United States, of course. So they've been investing a lot of money try to pump up the electric vehicles. So, but as of right now, I don't see any EV makers in China able to even get close to what Tesla is offering right now. So like the battery management system, the software, not even close as of right now.
So we've got our first deliveries on Monday from Gigafactory Shanghai. We've got the parking lot filled up. This is a pretty exciting time for EVs in China. We got incentives for the Model 3. What are you hearing from people there? Are people excited?
Oh yeah, they've been waiting for this sales tax exemption for like really long time, because like for the import one from Fremont, they get the sales tax exemption from September. And then as of like last night actually, so they announced the sales tax exemption for the MIC Model 3. So I think people are getting really excited about. And for next Monday, that will be like 15 Model 3 to deliver for the employees. And I believe the mass deliver will start Q1 from around January.
So no sales tax incentives, faster licensing and license plates and all that. Meanwhile, in the US, you got the tax cut expiring.
Yes.
Is it possible we could see more sales in China soon than in the US for Tesla?
I think that is highly possible. Yeah, it will surpass US sales. I would say within 2 years to 3 years. Yeah. And the production ramping will be amazing for the Giga 3. Will surprise everyone. This is what I heard from friends.
I personally think that China's market is more ready to accept EV than America has been.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, they have more superchargers. I mean, they're a huge country, but they have tons of superchargers. Or just not superchargers, just chargers and like charging stations in general.
I think the culture and buying climate there is much different, and consumer preferences are much different.
And the government in China seems to have made up their mind that EVs are the future, as kind of inevitable as that seems, but they're really like pushing everything to get in that direction. So I think that's another huge tailwind that's really going to make it inevitable.
And one thing like a lot of people actually didn't talk about is the relationship of Tesla and the Shanghai government. Because of, that the Gigafactory 3 is the sole owned, not like joint venture like the others. So I believe the Shanghai government really want to set up an example. It's like, look, Tesla is being success in China. So they would like to get like more foreign like company like Google's or like the other high-tech company like Apple, like to invest in China like Facebook or whatever, to drive more business to China. So this is like a example for the whole world. So they want Tesla to success. Yeah.
And it's amazing this all happened in the political climate of the trade war. I mean, everybody was going like, oh my God, China, like don't touch China all year. Then all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
Thank you, Vincent. So why don't we switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about the tech on the... I'm just curious because we kind of skipped over this a little bit, but the battery tech, and I know Shawn and I had, we were in a meeting where we got to find out a little bit more about the battery tech. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this Maxwell Tech coming down the pike and why you think that was such a great deal and why it sets Tesla apart really for the competition in the future?
It's, in my opinion, one of the most overlooked acquisitions of Tesla in 2019. And, there's a lot of us in this group who follow Tesla extremely closely. But when you look at the coverage of the acquisition of Maxwell from media and from platforms that are far larger than what our reach is, it's really been glossed over and overlooked, and it's possible that they just don't understand or don't know. But I had a conversation recently with someone who knows quite a bit about the acquisition, and the consensus was the same from this particular person, that this person didn't understand why people didn't get it a little bit more, because it is pretty fundamental. There's two things that I think this could potentially be twofold, and maybe there's some other things beyond this, but in the short term, I do think that the dry battery electrode is probably the initial tech that will be implemented initially. But maybe in the midterm, we may see some more things about Maxwell's supercapacitor tech. For those that follow Elon closely, he studied the technology. He wanted to see this. He wanted to use this tech, but the energy density just wasn't good enough for to be able to put into electric vehicles to replace the lithium ion. So I think that there may be some possible there in the midterm to see supercapacitors in electric vehicles as well. But the dry battery electrode tech, not only the energy density, but the production process, how this is going to shrink the production process and reduce cost for Tesla. I think those are going to be the things that we hear about in this Investor Day coming up in probably Q1 of 2020.
And this seemed like a huge tipping point for Tesla in general, where it's like they have enough capital to start buying these companies, and because they're vertically integrated, they can see the landscape changing, and they have the fastest ROI to spending $300 million on Maxwell and getting that money back, because nobody else is building batteries at scale. They weren't paying attention, and the financials didn't make sense. So they looked for, like, Maxwell was really mad that Tesla was acquiring the company for so cheap. They tried to get other bidders. No one else came in. But I think the Maxwell technology is going to show, like, Tesla's way ahead in battery tech today, but they're about to announce something that's even better. And whether that's how they scale to a terawatt of energy production, I think Maxwell's really about manufacturing batteries cheaper, less about building a better battery, at least for now. And then Tesla, building better batteries cheaper is the key to success for their entire product line. And that's why this tiny $200 or $300 million acquisition could be really a game changer for the whole kind of tech stack.
Do you guys think that the battery specs that they're showing today, or the range that they're showcasing today in the vehicles that are unreleased, like Roadster, Cybertruck, at least those two for sure, where it's 500 plus, do you think that's already accounting for Maxwell Technologies, and they just haven't announced it yet?
I think that those range numbers are conservative. If you look at the Model 3 was announced with a 220-mile range. The minimum range Model 3 that ever shipped was 240, which of course they had a software lock version to 220. So I think, when they factor in those range numbers, they're kind of thinking about, like, I think Elon said something like, well, we got a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack that can do, 320. So put 200 kilowatts hour in a Roadster, you can do 640, So in reality, I think the Roadster is going to do a lot more than 640. I think the Semi and the Cybertruck and the Model Y, you've seen the Model 3 had its range adjusted up and the Model Y hasn't. So I think you're going to see positive surprises on all these vehicles.
You could also see on the screen of the Cybertruck, which shows 620 miles. So I think there is something brewing there.
There's something imminent here, Elon said at Autonomy Day, and remember at Autonomy Day he says, here's our autonomy plans, and we're shipping hardware 3 in cars now, right? So that was the Autonomy Day. We're now shipping hardware 3 in cars, and let me tell you a little bit about why we're doing that and what the point of that is. And I think with the Maxwell acquisition and some of the other stuff that's happening, they clearly have a much better battery. You've seen Jeff Dawn, release his paper on the 1,000,000-mile battery, some patents, And Elon said at Autonomy Day, we're going to put a 1,000,000-mile battery into production next year, right? So I think either at Autonomy Day or shortly after Autonomy Day, we're going to see them announce that they're putting a new battery into production. And it may even launch with the Model Y. Remember, originally Model Y was supposed to launch at the end of the year, then they moved it up. So this could actually be accelerating a little bit. So what do we know about it? We know that, a 1,000,000-mile lifespan, up from 300,000 to 500,000 today. We know it's going to have a better energy density, so you'll be able to have a bigger battery in the same space, which kind of jives with the rumors of a 100 kilowatt hour Model 3 and Model Y we heard. We know that the dry electrode tech that Shawn talked about requires dramatically less capex to add more capacity. So what that means is, with typical batteries, you have these big drying machines to dry the solvent, which is a wet solvent for the battery. I don't really know anything about this, but basically you don't need these big expensive drying machines. So what that means is you want to set up a new battery production line, you can do it a lot cheaper. And that makes it cheaper to boost your production with less capex. And then finally, we know Tesla is producing their own cells. So that's kind of a mystery too. What's going on there with these special Tesla engineered cells that we've heard about.
So we talk about all these things that Tesla's doing. We don't hear a lot about what the competitors are doing, but it's conceivable in the future Tesla could license their tech. It doesn't have to be their best tech. But Shawn, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, you have any feeling for maybe there have been discussions already because you've met all these guys, these CEOs. What are their thoughts about like licensing Tesla's tech?
People that follow my channel, I probably talked about this a little bit too much, but so hopefully this isn't redundant. But I think that there's a big part of me that says that they need to. Right now, we're looking at the state of the market. We haven't seen any automakers produce a vehicle that competes with the 2012 Model S 85 kilowatt hour pack at 265 miles. The hope was that the Taycan was going to do that, but that really fell flat on its face. So you're looking at like a 5 to 8 year lead that Tesla has right now. What do automakers do if they want to compete? This is not just about, I think you really have to look at these cars as a total package. Range, yes, is important. It's probably the most important in my opinion. But when you look at the total package, it's really difficult to accept or to consider buying some of these other cars unless you just absolutely hate Tesla, you despise Elon Musk, and there are some people out there that do feel that strongly about Tesla, and that's okay. Yeah. So I think traditional auto is in a very difficult situation unless they are holding some cards to their chest that they haven't talked about with future tech. I think that they might need to consider something like that. Battery and motor tech. Do they license out Tesla's Gen 1 or Gen 2 technology to be able to produce a vehicle that's a little bit more competitive? Tesla used to license out to Daimler and Toyota to put their stuff in their cars. So could they do it again? And would that create some additional revenue for Tesla?
Shawn, who's the battery supplier for Volkswagen and Porsche?
LG Chem. LG Chem is essentially the battery supplier for almost all automakers' EVs, maybe with the exception of some from China.
And this is the big problem because then they're raising prices on pretty much everyone, right? There's a supply shortage of these LG Chem batteries.
Yeah, there was a rumor, and I think Gally covered this on one of his videos. There was a rumor that Panasonic was trying to raise prices on Tesla batteries, and Elon Musk was like, "Fuck it, we're just going to do our own thing." We don't need Panasonic. We're the largest producer of batteries in the world, and we'll just do our own thing. So I don't know if it's good reliable information, but it seems to make sense with Tesla's activities with acquiring some of these companies to become a little bit more self-sustaining and. To quote Drew Bagloni,
Baglino.
You know, they're making that Baglino. Thank you. I think so many people have butchered his last name, so I shouldn't feel too bad. You know, but he said that they're taking steps to control their own destiny, and I'm relatively confident that that includes producing their own batteries at this point.
And what have they done historically? Tesla always uses vertical integration. Like they kicked Mobileye out for their autopilot. I just think, you know, this is history repeating itself. Tesla's business strategy at a high level, and it's the reason they're so far ahead in many ways, is constantly going down that supply chain and vertically integrating. So I think the roadmap has got to be to make your own cells at some point.
Definitely. And let's talk about the full self-driving a little bit, because I mean, we just got a holiday update, a software update, which was pretty special. And I think last episode we were kind of guessing a little bit about what it was going to be. I mean, compared to the other guys out there, there's nothing like full self-driving or autopilot. I mean, there's some other packages that are trying to maybe sell it, market it as such, but nothing really like it. So I mean, everybody was really excited. Now you can actually see what the full self-driving computer is going to act on, like stop signs, traffic lights, things like that. So I mean, I know you've got an older vehicle, Shawn, but what are your thoughts on where we're at now with full self-driving compared to anybody else?
Well, I'm not as bullish as some people about full self-driving. I do think that there's a lot of room for Tesla to improve. With that being said, I think that it presents the most optimistic product that is on the automotive market, and I think the reason why is because they've got, you know, hundreds of thousands of vehicles on the road collecting real world data, sucking it up and sending it back to the mothership, back to Tesla's servers. So it gets really challenging when you are a competitor in the space and your test fleet is 10 or 50 cars, yet Tesla is doing the same thing with hundreds of thousands of cars and uploading that data. And these are real world miles. This is not test track. This is not, you know, closed environment. These are real world miles that Tesla is sucking up onto their servers and analyzing, and then spitting back out an iterative product to the end user. So it's tough. I mean, it will be really interesting to see what happens in 12 months, 24 months from now when we look back at this video.
And what about thoughts about licensing the FSD to other vehicles? I mean, I personally don't think Tesla's going to do that, but I mean, it's something
I disagree. I think licensing autopilot is going to be a huge business. I think that licensing the FSD chip could also be a huge business. I mean, you know, Shawn is not as bullish because he hasn't tried one of the latest Teslas with hardware 3. And once he does, he's going to be like, holy shit, this is a lot better. Like, I mean, I have, you know, a Model 3 with hardware 3, luckily. You know, I'm blessed. And I was just driving to work today. About 20 minutes on the surface streets, no freeways. And, you know, it took me to work with 0 disengagements, which is normal. And I was just reflecting on how many bugs they fixed over the year. Because, you know, I've done this drive every day. There used to be a bug where it would just dive for the left turn lane, right? So if there's a left turn lane at one intersection that opened up, and it would just kind of try and center it in the lane, it would, you know, just kind of dive to the left. And so they fixed that bug. That doesn't happen anymore. And, you know, another bug was, you know, I would disengage because people would cut in front of me really fast. That doesn't happen anymore. You know, now cut-in detection is very good. And so you can say, oh, well, there's still 1,000 bugs. But they fixed 1,000 bugs last year. And it could actually be very beneficial for Tesla, right? Because right now they've got this moat. They've got autopilot. And it's very difficult for someone to catch up, but like a Google or somebody who's good at software, they could, you know, catch up and make their own autopilot. But if you just expand your moat, you bring BMW in, you bring Volkswagen in, you bring Toyota in, right? And now their data is all feeding into your system too. And you've got all this worldwide real-time data, and autopilot just gets so good, nobody can really compete with it. That could be really powerful for Tesla. And licensing play would help them do that. Not to mention, you don't have to make any cars. You just give the chip and the software, maybe help them a little bit with building it, but you make money a lot faster. And I bet Wall Street would go bananas if Tesla was licensing their drivetrain or autopilot or both. They would just go bananas. The earnings opportunity is huge. Oh, they don't have to make a car and they can make all this money selling the technology. I think that's really undervalued. And who knows?
Well, I'm curious that seeing what this latest update brought to us, it's kind of like a flex. Like, hey, we told you that full self-driving is coming, and maybe those of you still don't believe us. Let us show you what we're actually seeing and what we're acting on, right? So now you get all these visualizations, what the autopilot sees, and really the only person that has really experienced full self-driving is Gally. So I'm interested, Gally, from that respect, right? Did your belief, I mean, we're all already pretty bullish here on the panel, but did you become more bullish and optimistic about full self-driving after seeing it fully, like, zero interruptions, take you from point A to point B, just over that? And then just piggybacking off the whole licensing thing is that, there's so much stuff that we talked about today on licensing, right? From the battery tech to, the full self-driving to the superchargers and stuff like that. And today, no one has done that. Supercharging, and I think at least supercharging for sure it's an open door, but nobody's taken them up on it. So I'm curious if anybody would really want to, or are they really just like anti-Tesla, all other manufacturers?
Well, I think what it comes down to is that if data is the new oil and everything about these neural nets is all about how much data you can feed through it, Tesla has people paying them to get more data, while every other company is paying engineers to drive around, and it's like orders of magnitude different. It's like billions of miles versus millions, and they're only a runaway with that. And so the whole idea of them licensing out this software, like Intel inside powering every laptop, Tesla inside powering every EV, like they just get a runaway more amount of data, and they have people paying them to do it. And so I'm curious what you guys think about all this. When is that going to switch? When is another company going to actually get this flywheel off the ground and start going? Because until someone does, it just seems like it's not a discussion that someone else has a better tech stack or even something that could compete.
That would be awesome. Tesla inside.
They're not going to do it until they have to. They don't want to admit that Tesla has a lead. But if BMW put out a 3 Series with autopilot and a Tesla drivetrain, that'd be a pretty compelling product. I mean, I had a BMW before. I had a lot of fun with it. I have positive associations with it. If they put a Tesla drivetrain and technology in that vehicle, I would definitely want to go check it out. I would, drive to that dealership immediately to see that car.
Well, also one of the benefits of having the tech would be, if the cars could have intercommunication with each other, they could also up the safety. I mean, you could make it so that there'd be 0 accidents if they're all running the same full self-driving software, all that sort of stuff. I mean, it would be, the safety is the most important thing about it.
I just thought of a crazy idea. So, whoa. Tesla takes 20% of the robotaxi cut, right? What if they just made their kind of Tesla OS like Android? Like, hey, you want the OS? It's free. Put it in your car. But you have to use these Tesla services in the Tesla network, and if the car is a robotaxi, it gives us 20%, right? I mean, who knows? That could be an interesting approach. Just becomes like the Android of, car software. And with the EV, so much of it is software. Even like the efficiency and all that stuff, how it drives, it's all software.
Or they just become like the Apple, right? Just order everything to themselves, and they just know that they're a superior product, and everyone's going to buy it.
Well, there's only so many cars they can make.
Same with Apple. There's only so many phones they
more
can
factories.
make too.
Didn't Elon say he wants 100 factories? Isn't that how many? 100 gigafactories?
Well, he said there would be 100 gigafactories it would take to get the whole world running on on batteries and stuff and solar. Yep. But I mean, they're going to keep producing them. I'm very interested to see where the next one's going to be.
Well, that's not all Tesla gigafactories. Hopefully, other people.
No, yeah, he's saying there would be exactly, right, exactly.
And we actually have seen people do a few gigafactories, like a Volkswagen gigafactory or something, and A few people have announced that they're now not relying on LG. They're going to do their own battery joint ventures. I think Volkswagen has one in Europe. Someone just announced one here in the U.S.
Is it truly a gigafactory though, or just a factory?
Yeah, VW is partnering with Norvolt, which is a battery company based out of Sweden, and the CEO came from Tesla Europe. So that sounds quite promising. It appears like they understand the value of creating their own batteries. And then I think that the one thing that was just hit the news recently was GM is partnering together with LG Chem to do a joint venture factory in Ohio, I want to say.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I think we've been going for a bit of a while now, about an hour. Do you guys want to do some closing thoughts now? Maybe we can start with Kristen while she still has her voice.
I'm excited for the sustainable future, of EVs, but I think it's interesting how like we were saying, the electric battery really requires the software, and I really do hope that other legacy autos do get involved in this, because this is the goal, not to just be so far ahead that we just completely demolish the competition, but we really want to invigorate the competition. The open patents and everything. I'm hoping that it really does catch fire and it spreads, not that it disheartens anybody, but
Thanks, Kristen. And then Viv, what do you think about the competition and going forward with Tesla, and closing thoughts?
I really hope that Tesla's mission is succeeding, and that, it already is, but I hope it's further succeeding, and that more companies keep pushing out more EVs, not just the ones that we've seen right now, but actually compelling EVs that are going to be bought by the masses. And I hope that, maybe I wouldn't necessarily want it. I'd rather let them be the Apple of software than the Android. But if them being the Android is what it takes to push to accelerate sustainable energy, then why not? And maybe they can start by licensing the supercharger and have other companies use it. That would be a good start.
Awesome, thanks, Vincent. What do you think on this topic?
Yeah, for myself, I actually would love to see more legacy automaker to get into electrify, get into EV. Originally, I was planning to order a Taycan, when I first saw the Mission E. It's nice, it's sexy. To be honest with you, the cosmetic looks good, but when I see the spec and then the pricing, because I was 150 for 200 miles, no way, So hopefully they will put more R&D into making some more reasonable, practical EVs. Yeah, that's what I hope for.
Thanks, Vincent. And Raj, what do you think? Your closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think competition is good, right? The world needs competition. I think that having as customers, we need options. All of us here have picked kind of our options, so we know what side we're on the fence on. And it's only, I think Tesla's developed the lead. They've kind of set the industry standard, which I think is really good. There's options for them to license. There's, I think even if they don't, they'll still be successful because they've got that industry lead. They've set that name for themselves. It's kind of like you see a car that's electric with a large screen, you'll just call it a Tesla, even though it's not. I don't know, it could be one of those, you call all phones an iPhone. So I think, the future has a lot of cool stuff. Just seeing what Tesla's got, coming down the pipe is exciting, and seeing other manufacturers try to keep up and catch up, make them grow and become better. And overall, I think despite how many and who licenses or what, it still goes back to Tesla's mission is accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. And that's great, right? That's what we all hope for. So there are people there are companies that are better and worse. Everyone's opinion is their own, but yeah, I think it's great. Good for clean energy.
Awesome. And Golly?
I I just think we're at an extremely interesting inflection point in the whole auto transportation industry. Electric and autonomous are two crazy disruptive technologies, and Tesla's leading both of those. And so I just think this is kind of a unique point in history, and they're so far ahead in both of them that I'm rooting for everyone to catch up. And I think competition breeds innovation, but I think we're still at the start of that phase 2 I mentioned, where everyone's desperately copying Tesla to try and catch up. But I think there's so much uncertainty about what the future of the industry looks like. The only thing that's for certain is that whoever's winning those 2 tech races is going to be leading it and going to be capturing most of the value. And I see that pretty clearly as Tesla for the time being.
And Shawn?
Yeah, it's clear that if Tesla wants to accomplish their mission of accelerating sustainable energy and transportation, they're going to need the assistance of some of these other automakers to do that. If Tesla departs from that or varies from that, then maybe that will change my opinion. But if they truly are focused on getting the world off of oil, they're going to need the assistance of other automakers. Those other automakers are going to need to succeed. That being said, there's a very good chance that some of these automakers won't. Calling out Honda, Toyota, and FCA, they appear to be the ones that are the laggards in electrification. So it's never good when a company goes out of business, especially a large one like that. But it seems to be that some companies are not taking the transition, or as Gally says, the disruption seriously. I think that we're looking at a very similar point in time when people began to go from horse and cart to automobile. We're seeing this big transition, and at that time there were a lot of people who said, no, cars are not the way. Horses will always be good. They're great because of X, Y, and Z. But sure enough, the market will decide. The market will determine what they like the best. I think there are many advantages to electrification. Tesla needs the help of other automakers. Some may not make it, but I hope most do.
So, I think a lot of the bears on this stock have said, the competition is coming, and it's going to destroy Tesla, and that's going to be the end of them. And I think a lot of the bulls have enjoyed laughing at the competition and saying, that's not a good EV. It's wrong. And what do we want for the future? Do we want a future where, right now when someone buys a Tesla, it's this weird thing, right? They go, oh, okay, it's an EV. By default, they're thinking gas car. So, okay, it's an EV, where do I charge it? I don't want a future where people are asking these questions. I want a future where people are thinking, okay, well, everything I buy is going to be an EV. So I'm just choosing between different EVs. I don't want to see Tesla be some niche, weird little thing. I want to see it take over. And I think that's going to provide a lot of benefits for Tesla. Number one, the cost of producing an EV will go down if everybody makes EVs. The cost of those parts will decrease with economies of scale. And that'll be good for Tesla, and that'll be good for EV adoption because it means the price of every EV goes down. And secondly, with things like charging network, word of mouth, people just being comfortable with EVs, people having seen an EV, people having experienced it, that's going to provide really great network benefits that are really helpful to Tesla. So for 2020, I hope we see some serious competition. This is like Android without an iPhone to go up against it so far. I hope in 2020, we see a really great EV that somebody makes a lot of money on.
Awesome. Thanks, Omar. And and just my final closing thoughts, because I didn't mention mine either. I think that we got a lot of things to look forward to. We got Model Y coming out, and that's a whole market segment Tesla hasn't even touched yet. So there's competition that's going to be having to step up in that area as well as like the Cybertruck when that comes out, and then the Roadster, all these things that are coming down the pike. So what's frustrating for me is with the competition, they're making so much money already because people are buying gas cars, right? That there's no incentive for them right now, and of course the gas is subsidized, so everything makes sense economically until they see in California gas prices can get pretty high. So when people start realizing, they do the math and they see, oh, well, we have a compelling vehicle now in the Tesla. I mean, they can do that with other EVs, but you don't have the supercharging infrastructure. You don't have like the efficiency, all those sort of things. So I think they just need to take it more seriously and just almost like say, we're not going to make any more gas cars. We're going all electric. Let's go all in. And they need those kind of leaders running the companies if those legacy companies want to survive. Or the new companies are just going to come in their place and take over. So that's my final thoughts on the competition. I just think they're not going to survive unless they really take it seriously. So.
The set of global auto companies might be different in 10 years than it is today. We might see startups take over existing players. There's definitely an opportunity to.
Definitely. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for real this time. It's really great to have you, and thanks so much, Shawn, for taking the time and joining us as our guest today. And we hope to have you back on the show again. So everyone from Third Row, signing off. Peace.
Thank you.
Peace.